All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for tonight's post-match press conference. Joined first by Austin FC head coach Josh Wolf. We'll go straight into questions from the media. Phil, I see your hand up first, so go ahead and get us started.
Yeah, so just wondering about the offensive performance again. I know we've talked about this a lot, but 0 shots on goal, 2 shots total. You're a striker. You've been in this league. You're coaching the team. You say they're working on stuff, and yet we're seeing this match after match. And I'm just curious as to where the disconnect is coming.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think when we play at home, we certainly generate a lot more chances and generate more goals, and I think that's proof in our certainly what the games have looked like at home. On the road, it's been challenging for sure. We take a little bit more conservative approach for sure, but again, I think we find ourselves in situations we got to do much better with chances when we're in front of goal. We have again a few very clear transition opportunities, poor decision and poor execution, but we still got to generate more. Today was there was one team that needed to win, and there's another team that looked like it'd just be nice if we won. And that was the reality of it. That team, Kansas City, was they're up against the wall. They have to win games right now. That's where they're at. And the approach from our guys from the standpoint of effort, attitude, and toughness missed the mark significantly. And it was all around the field from fairly early in the game throughout the conclusion of the game. We had a couple guys that really grinded and competed, but you can't do that on the road. From the offensive side, again, we certainly look different when we're at home. And I don't think I don't enjoy going on the road and not creating more chances for sure. It takes bravery to play. It takes better execution when you get into certain situations. And, obviously we have some limitations as far as what personnel we have, but we got to do better.
But I mean, doesn't that attitude start with coaching? I mean, this is a team that's won 11-2 in their last 14. This is a team that hadn't had a shutout in 17 straight matches. And this seems like if this is a match where you're going to get 3 points on the road, this is the team.
Yeah, again, I don't take any team lightly. Again, Kansas City's still a very good team. I've watched them in enough games. They've lost a lot of games in the last few minutes of games, and likewise against us, they almost grabbed a point late. So they're a good team, regardless of where teams are in position. This league is way too challenging. I don't look at that as really what I would draw any issues with. It's more about how we approach the game, and again, the effort from our guys, the commitment has to be more. It's got to, when you're on the road, you got to match what the other team's doing. And like I said, they needed to win, and that's what it looked like. And for us, we didn't reciprocate that. And in the end, that's why we lose.
Thank you, Phil. Moises, over to you.
You said there are a couple times that one team had to win.
Mm-hmm.
You're a couple points above the playoff line, 3 points out of sixth, 6 points out of third,
Mm-hmm.
as the standings sit right now. What do you think your team has to do now, if not win?
Yeah, no, we need to win. As always, our objective from the get-go, knowing who we were and what we had to start the year with, was to be a playoff team, to be above ninth, and that doesn't change. We hopefully are going to get certainly a little more firepower here soon. Certainly getting Ozzy in with the group and Mikel. I think those will be notable players that will help our attack for sure. But we have to perform. We know it's going to be challenging. We have a light roster, and that's been like that all year. And like I said, we didn't get too carried away when we were doing well, and we're not going to get too feathered by it when it's not. We're in the playoff picture. That's a good thing for our group, and we're going to know when you're at home, you got to do your best to grab 3 points. That's where in this league, it's quite important to grab results at home, but on the road, if you can find wins here and there, that goes a long way as well.
You told us on Thursday, and then you repeated a moment ago, that you never underestimate Peter Vermes, never underestimate Sporting Kansas City. What did they do that was especially effective against you tonight that you saw that was frustrating to deal with?
No, again, I think it's nothing in particular that they did. We need to be much better with the ball. We have to be much more intentional and purposeful, want the ball, need the ball. And then when we're defending, we have to defend. It's a group of 11. Again, there's an intensity. There was a frustration, and we had a lot of silly fouls that gave them possession and territory and a lot of set pieces, and that was what the first half looked like. And again, we give away a real poor ball, and the transition is not not dealt with really well, and they grab a second goal. But you go on the road, it's going to be challenging, and we got to be certainly a bit more brave and confident with the ball for sure.
Thank you, Moises. Jorge, go ahead.
Hi, Josh. Talking about the commitment, I agree with you, but what can you do with the players that they don't perform? And we can see it. We can see it on the field. They don't perform. What can you do? How can you solve that?
No, I think the players do perform. Tonight they did not perform. I think if you have more players, you can take players off the field. We don't have a lot of depth, so changing a player is challenging. We don't have a ton of depth in the group right now. The players that are coming will give us depth. So the way you change behavior in some aspects is guys go to the bench, and that changes behavior. We just don't have a ton of players that we can interject to the squad right now. We're missing Danny, and we're missing Julio. Those are key components for us as well. And if players don't perform well, it's all right. That's part of what sport is. And as we get more players back and we get our new players in, that will quickly help bring to light that side of what this game is about, competing.
Have you ever thought about bringing more players from FC2 to?
Yeah, again, we bring in the ATX2 guys. Again, I think you see tonight, Jimmy is he's brought in to help give us a little bit of depth since we're so light. But you can tell he's a little unsure of what he's supposed to do out on the field, and that's common for young guys. It's those guys are going to need to develop and grow. I mean, he has an opportunity to play with the first team, but I'd say CJ and Bryant need to continue to get minutes and continue to develop. They aren't, they're not all the way there with the first team. That's why we try to give them limited minutes in certain opportunities and situations, but it's a challenge. It's certainly a challenge. And, they have to perform in their own space as well to get more opportunities here. I think they'll both play tomorrow, which is good. But again, added depth, they give us a little bit of bodies, but they don't have experience, and they're still discovering what their qualities are that they can bring to this first team.
Josh, but why you're taking all the responsibility? Most of the people on social media goes through you, Wolf Out or whatever, but why you absorb all that? Why you don't bring in somebody with you or something? Because they're the ones on the field.
I don't get too worried about Wolf Out and all that. That's been here since I first got here. But it's a sport. Every week is challenging. We got to get these guys ready for every game each week, and it's about performing. And we have a game plan. We got to try to go out and execute. We need players to do their role inside of it. And it's a long, arduous grind, and we want to make the playoffs. We are right along that playoff line, which is, again, what we expected from the get-go this year. We know it was going to be challenging. As we add some players and quality, I think that will give us more options and more opportunity, and certainly some variety in the attack.
Thank you, Jorge. Phil, back over to you.
Yeah, just you were talking about benching players. Obviously, you were just saying you don't have the luxury to do that because it is a thin bench right now. But as the summer transfer window opens and those players come in, like who tonight do you think would have benefited from benching? Like, is there any particular
that's not what we're doing, Phil. I mean, seriously, we're not gonna sit here and jump on that and start saying that. That's
well, I mean, was there anybody whose performance you thought was maybe lacking then tonight?
Well, I think there's a lot of players that could question, but you're also not going to bench 11 guys. So we got to be realistic with what we're asking and saying in the questions, but they have to perform. And when you have more competition in the group, that's it's easier to pull those things off. But these players have worked incredibly hard. It's not about benching them. The game is about competing. So each week, it's a busy schedule over the course of the year, and where we had a normal work week, it was nice, but we still have 15, 16 guys at training, and it's we have those limitations, but there's no excuse for the effort, the attitude, and the toughness that's required when you go into any game. There has to be more, and we typically give a much better representation of ourselves, and we missed the mark on that tonight.
Jorge, I saw your hand go up and then back down. Do you have another one? Moises, we'll come back to you then.
So then maybe to rephrase a bit of what I feel like Phil might have been going after. Um, you mentioned the yellow cards tonight.
Mhm.
We've talked about that also recently. What are contributing factors that you see helping you make determinations as to which players are getting the minutes in which positions, the decisions that are being made on the field, relative refs that maybe are known to be soft on yellows, situationally, games like where
What's the
you're up a
question
guy and that kind
what's
of.
the question that you
I
asked?
guess the question is what kind of criterion are you looking at as you're moving into a phase where you're going to have more roster depth, you're going to have more players than you have in the last few months.
I think it always
What
starts with you want to put your best 11 out on the field. And I think that's kind of what we design everything around. It's not always your best players, but how do you get your best 11 guys out on the field? And there's different positions and sometimes we've had to utilize guys in different spaces, but what a ref does is an outside thing. Yellow cards can accumulate that forces some decision. Injuries force decisions, but not force. It now limits certain options. But I think again, as we get more players, it's still about putting the best, our best 11 in the way that we feel we're going to go about the game and what we think that the opposition will have. And again, it's like that every week.
Thank you, Moises. Jorge, back to you.
Just is the best 11 on the paper, and but do you think there are players that probably young players that are hungry of doing something?
Is there someone specific you're talking or just
No, because this
like
happened in Mexico before.
yeah.
Like
Which young players
coaches,
do you think, which
coaches
young
not
players would you
getting.
like to see? Which
I
young
mean,
players would you
coaches
like to
not
see?
getting the response from the starting 11 from the best players, so they bring young people to
Yeah.
to play.
Yeah, no, I think it's
To
it's a
I don't know
great
how to
point.
explain.
No, I think it's a great point. It's another area where again our ATX2 team is quite light. There's the quality that we have there is still in the process of developing as well. But we utilize some of those players in our training sessions. They utilize the academy players, so it's a trickle down effect. But we feel we are giving some of the better players that have shown and show some prospect, so such as CJ and Bryant. Alonzo was in with us. An opportunity to play. They got to earn that opportunity, but they're in the process of developing. That will continue for as long as they can stay in this profession. But we don't just hand out opportunities. These guys have to earn them. They have to be ready for it as well. I mean, CJ and Brian, it's good to have them in here, but it's challenging to come in these games. You can see it when they come in. There's the indecision on their side and some of their decision making, but that's what we try to work with. And they get games with the twos, and that helps build confidence. And the hope is that they continue to get minutes, certainly in training with us and help their development. But when opportunities come in games, we'll try to get them some minutes as well.
Thank you, Jorge. Phil, back to you.
Yeah, just wondering about one sub in particular. You subbed out Gallagher for
Mhm.
Jimenez in the 70th minute. Just kind of curious about what the rationale was there.
Yeah, I think, it's just Hector is someone that has a bit more calm and decision making with the ball. Johnny gives us a little more speed and we would have liked to utilize him further up the field, but we put Obi on that side as well. So it's hard to overlap Obi just in general. He's one of the fastest guys, but we could have been much better in how we utilize the wide areas and the 2v1s that we could create. We were, again, pretty inefficient with how we needed to for us progress attacks and live in the space, so to speak. So Hector's again, he comes in, just getting him minutes, getting an opportunity. But again, I thought he would bring us possession and certainly more calm in the final third.
Thank you, Phil. That's all the hands I see. Anything else for Josh? All right. Thanks, everyone. Back in just a second. All right, everybody. Thanks for waiting. Joined now by Austin FC defender Brendan Hines Ike. As with Josh, utilize raise hand function to indicate you'd like to ask a question. Phil, go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, so we were just talking to Josh, and he was kind of indicating the difference between the two teams was that one team really needed to win, that their backs were up against the wall, and then for one team, which was Austin, that it would have just been nice to win. And I'm just kind of wondering if the players felt sort of the same way about it as Josh apparently did.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we spoke about before the game was the things we can control, which is our effort, our attitude, our behavior toward the game, our toughness throughout the game. And I think there were moments where we showed it, but I think there was far too many moments where we didn't. And ultimately they were there to win no matter what. And it showed in their effort in terms of tackles, duels, willingness to push the game a bit more than us. And yeah, I think that's something that we have to be better at from the get-go and throughout the longevity of the game, is understanding what those games are going to look like. I mean, especially a team that's in a struggling moment in the season, they're not just going to fold over, especially at home. They're going to come out with everything, and we got to be able to wear and tear those moments throughout the game, and then be able to capitalize when we have our chances. And yeah, I think I'm never going to fault effort from other players by any means, but I think a lot of us at the end of that game felt like we could have approached it in a bit of a better way, and that was the overall feeling. But at the same time, we have now a huge home stretch, coming up in July, so we have to flip the tables and do the same thing to teams, at home and in Q2.
So, I mean, what do you attribute that to, though? I mean, the kind of feeling that you could have prepared better. I mean, obviously the result happens, but this is a team that's won 11-2 in the last 14. They've been struggling. This is a gettable 3 points on the road. Josh talks about 1 point on the road being important, but it seemed like this is a match where you can get 3 straight results if you win or even draw, and then that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to say like the preparation in any way was not the correct for the game. I think it's just more, like I said, those things that we can control in terms of toughness, attitude throughout the game. I think we got a little bit too drawn into the referee from the get-go, which you can't do too much as a player, because that'll affect you throughout the game. You waste a lot of energy trying to, change things that aren't going to change because he makes calls that he's going to make. And instead it should be, put into, how we can be positive to each other, how we can continue to push each other. Not an easy place to play, Kansas City, no matter what their setup is, and no matter what their, situation is in terms of wins and whatnot. And I think even more so because, Peter rotated the team quite a lot in terms of their starting 11. That should have been a clear sign for us as well. Like, it's fresh guys coming in who are going to want to, show themselves and earn their minutes. And we had to be aware of that from the get-go, but also knowing that they still have good players coming off the bench who can affect the game, which they did. And yeah, I think when you go on the road, it's always hard in MLS. And I'm sure you guys have heard this before. It's just, that's what makes this league difficult. You have to be really ready for a difficult environment each time you go away, no matter if you're in a good spot or if they're in a bad spot. So, I think we just needed to approach the game more in a sense of giving them overall more respect and being willing to push back and fight against them more. That should be our mentality and our mantra from every moment of the game. That's what will win us games like it did in Minnesota, and that's what's going to win us games in Q2.
Thank you, Phil. I don't see anyone else's hands up at the moment, but we'll go to whoever raises their hand next. Jorge, over to you.
Yes. Well, you're talking. Hi. You're talking about the performance at home, but actually being at home or away on the last games, we haven't scored more than 1 goal. What's the difference to be at home or be away on the forward on front?
I think you're asking the wrong guy. I'm a defender, so
No,
I-
because you see, and the question is actually because you just say we have a different performances at home, but on the attack,
No, what I said is whether we're home or away, the performance needs to be the same in terms of our mentality. Because, that's how we are as a team. We have to show up with the right mentality against everybody, no matter who we're playing against, no matter if we're home against LAFC, if we're away against Sporting Kansas City, whatever the mentality or whatever the situation is, we have to have the right mentality. And I think that's being what we talked about at the beginning of the game in terms of our behavior, our attitude, our mental toughness. I can't comment on us scoring or not scoring. I can't say anything about that. But the attitude that we bring toward the game and the willingness to compete and duel, that's something you can always have. And I think we as players know that we can be better at that, especially in moments like this where we know it's going to be hard. We can't be outdueled and outplayed in terms of toughness on the field against anybody.
and how to fix it. I mean, you guys know everybody has an idea, but how you guys can fix it?
Fix what?
The mentality, the winning mentality.
It's there, right? It's there. It's just we need to give it every game. We're not a team that cannot show up games. We have to have that mentality every game, period. We've shown it in moments. We've shown it, in away moments. We've shown it a lot more against, teams when we're home. We just have to show it every time. And that's part of being a professional, showing up every game, and I think a lot of guys know that. I think a lot of guys need to have that look in the mirror in terms of, hey, I can't not show up for games. I can't not have the right mentality and willingness to compete and duel. And, I think for pretty much most of the season and majority of these games, guys have done that. And I think we can just be better at it today for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. Moises, over to you.
We talked to Guilherme on Thursday, and he definitely indicated you guys were going to Kansas City looking for 3 points. I have no doubt that all of you guys on the field, on the bench, are wanting that win. You're one of 11 out there, and this is always a fraught kind of thing talking to you guys after a loss. So I'm just curious, in the course of this game specifically. You talked about mentality a bit. Did you feel like there was a particular place in the game that it was difficult to keep your mentality in it, where it felt like the wheels were coming off, or did it feel like you guys were able to keep pushing to the last minute to try to get some points back on the board? Again, this is not an easy thing to talk about, and you got a few days to shake this off.
Yeah.
But where were the peaks and valleys for you over the course of those 90 minutes?
Well, as I said, I think that there were a lot of moments where we did show it well. I think there was a lot of moments where, it was tough for us and we continued to defend well as a group. There was periods in the first half before the first goal came that we defended really well, and we were maybe a bit too low for our liking, but, we defended the box well and we didn't let too many things in. And then, yeah, you have small moments where you turn off. The goal kind of comes from us not really dealing with it well enough. We don't clear it well enough. We don't really get out to our men fast enough. And then, they score. And that small lapse of not being willing to finish the play or like I said, the attitude to be tougher than them in terms of your duels, is what will cost you on away games. And I'd say in the second half, we were a bit more methodical about how we built up the ball. We struggled with it throughout the game. The field was really bad from our standpoint, and it was tough for us to get the ball moving the way we usually do, as the back line likes to. And then ultimately, we have a turnover, and I think credit to them for pouncing on it. But even then, I think there were still moments throughout the game where we could have, maybe snuck one back in. But I think we knew at that moment, because of how much intensity they had given throughout the game, it was going to be hard to work our way back in, because on a lot of levels they were better than us, and that's something we have to improve.
Well, I have to follow up asking about that second goal. Of course, you're going to shake this off before the next one. But what do you feel like went wrong there? What did you see in the moment? You're always covered in regrets when one goes in, but that one in particular looked like some stuff fell apart on you.
Well, we turned the ball over, and then we had a counterattack against us, with arguably one of the better front three running at us, and that's a hard moment to cover that much space. If the team has a 3 or 4 against 2 on a counter, you try to cover space the best you can, and yeah, I think the ball ultimately from Russell was very good. It's difficult for anybody to touch that because then you're looking at an own goal. And he also had the cutback option at the top of the box. So ultimately, if we're in a better spot in terms of not turning it over and having better, numbers behind the ball, I don't think it leads to that. I think we didn't expect to turn it over at that moment, and then we were kind of caught, numerically in the back line, and those are hard moments to defend when they're running full speed, especially when they have 1 or 2 guys more than you. So.
Thank you, Moises. Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Brendan. I guess I would just ask, because I'm hearing everyone ask questions and stuff. I would just say, what would be your message to the traveling fans that show up, over there on the road, and, like the accountability aspect of, obviously today's 2-0 loss, and, I know it's only June. There's still so much more left.
No, I mean, I think, we are always very appreciative of the traveling supporters, and it's always clear across the board, no matter where we go. There's quite a lot of fans that are there for us, and whether they're traveling or they're just happening to to live there. And so we try to make it a point as players to always make sure we applaud them and thank them for coming. But I think that the biggest thing is that we, again, we have to show that we're giving everything, in terms of attitude and mentality and our willingness to work. And I think if that's the case, then no matter the result, I think that the fans will be appreciative. But if we don't show everything we have and we don't work, to our absolute maximum, especially on away games, then I get it. I understand that there's an aspect of being upset. So I think, again, we as a team, we talked about it after the game. I think it's clear that has to be, a staple for us from here on out, no matter what the scenario is. And I'll never fault poor play. I'll never fault missed chances, but attitude and willingness to work is non-negotiable. And I think that's across the board for not only myself, but I think every player in that locker room. So I think that's where the disappointment comes from. And to the traveling fans, I think there was quite a few players that went to show their thanks, and I know that they're appreciative of their trip. And I'll be the one to put my hand up and say we apologize from that standpoint, from not working hard enough. That's not acceptable, for me, for anybody. We always have to work to our maximum, especially on away games. So but yeah, we're appreciative of them to the maximum, and we showed it to them for sure after. But yeah, we'll keep talking about that for sure in terms of mentality.
Thank you so much. Have a safe flight. That's all for me.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions for Brendan before we let him go? All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
you.
Brendan. Have a good rest of your
So
night.
Travis
everyone.
back. Thanks.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.